In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the catalytic converter on this Ford Escape. This happens to have the 2.0 liter turbo engine. Let's get into it. Take the wiper arms off, just use a pick. We'll take this little cover off on the side. Just get underneath there, pop that cover off. Using a 15mm socket, take this nut off. Grab the arm, you just want to rock it back and forth, get it to separate. Slide that off out of the way. Do the same on the other side. I'm going to take these clips off, just use a pick, get underneath the clip. These ones over here have like an extra clip. Get underneath there, pop those out. And grab this cowl and just lift up. There you go. It's just clipped in underneath. Those clips just push down. Using a T25 socket, we're going to take these two screws out. And that's just going to sit right there. Using a 8mm socket, take these screws out. That's loose, then do the same on the other side. Now grab this panel, and it pulls right out. Remove the engine cover just underneath. Just grab and pull up. Just some grommets holding it in. Loosen up this worm clamp right here. I'm going to use a 7mm socket. Using an 8mm socket, loosen up this worm clamp. That's good. Disconnect this hose. There's a tab on the top and a tab on the bottom. Just squeeze those. You can release it. Slide that off. There's one bolt right here. Take that bolt out. Use an 8mm socket. And grab this snorkel. And it comes right off. On the back, there's a pipe right here. You just want to squeeze the tabs to release it. And that comes off. You just squeeze right there, and that separates. Remove this bolt, use an 8mm socket. Remove this tab, use a 12mm socket. It's just plastic. Take that out. Now we're going to use a 7mm socket, loosen up this worm clamp down here. All right, that's good, it's loose. Grab this snorkel, wiggle it, and slide it out. Now we'll take this hose off. Just pinch these two, just like that. Slide that out of the way. Now in the back here, behind this fuel pump, there is a connector for the O2 sensor. You want to pop that off. I'm just going to use a trim tool. Just get behind there, where the retainer is. There we go. There's the connector. I'm going to disconnect the connector. Then we'll disconnect the connector. Just push down on the tab. If you need to, you can just pry it out. Just use a prying tool. And that's good. That's loose. Now taking a O2 sensor socket. This is a 22mm socket with a slice in it so that you can get around the wire. And just unscrew it. And it comes right out. There it is. We disconnect the connector right here. Just push on the tab. And slide that off. If you need to, you can pull it out of the retainer. Slide that off. All right. Underneath, we're going to take this bar down, use a 15mm socket. Take these nuts off. And take these bolts out. Same 15mm socket. Slide that bar down. I'm going to use a O2 sensor socket. It's a 22mm socket with a slice in it to get over the wire. Get over the wire. Pull that out. You can pull the wire down. Maybe caught on some retainers. And just twist it. All right, there it is. And just twist it right out. There you go. You want to take these two nuts off. They should be a 15mm socket or a 13mm socket. Ours are severely rotted, so we're just going to cut ours off. There we go. You want to separate that. Right there. Now on the top part of the converter, there's a clamp. I'm going to use a 13mm socket. I want to loosen up that clamp. Oh, just broke off. It's not a bad thing. And just take a hammer and give it a tap. Oh, there you go, that's separated. We might have to separate that some more later. That's okay. Underneath, there's a bracket right here that two of the studs are coming through. We're gonna use a 13mm socket. These ones are a little rusty, so I'm just gonna tap these on. I just went through the mount with my extension. Take that one off. Do the same on the one right next to it. I'll pull that off. Using a 15mm socket, there's two nuts on that same bracket that attach the bracket to the transfer case. Just take those nuts off. Take that off, and the other one. And when you get this nut further down, you probably want to switch to a ratchet wrench so you don't get your socket and ratchet stuck. There's not a lot of room in that. And take that nut off. Now the clamp, I'm just going to separate that, try to get that off. There we go. Now that's loose. We're going to take these two bolts out, use a 10mm socket. Take that out. You also want to take this bracket off. Just slide the converter up. You can slide that bracket out. There we go. If it gives you a little trouble, just hit it with a hammer. Take this bolt out, use a 15mm socket. This way you can rock the engine forward and tip the drive shaft down a little bit while you're removing the converter. Just slide it out. Watch out for the insulation. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Slides right out. We're going to remove the heat shield. We have to transfer this over to the new catalytic converter. There's a band clamp right here. I'm just going to use a cutoff wheel. It comes right off. Then you're going to have some bolts. These ones are pretty rotted, but you would use an 8mm socket. Take the bolts out. You know. There it is. Now we're going to remove the hanger. Use some exhaust hanger pliers if you have some. Just pop these off. take the new converter, take the heat shield, line this up, get that in position. And I'm just going to use some washers because that's rotted away a little bit. Some new bolts. And I'm going to use a hose clamp, actually 2 hose clamps together to tighten those down. This under here. There we go, that's good. You can trim any excess. And tighten the bolts down. There we go. Good. Make sure it doesn't rattle. It's good. I'm gonna take the new converter, slide it in, same way the old one came out. Just gonna have to twist it back and forth. Get it over the drive shaft. Get it close to position. Right there. Now we're going to take the clamp and the seal. We need to get these on up where the turbo is. Slide the seal over. Right there. Take the clamp. Just line that up. It's over. Get this lined up on the turbo. Okay, so I got the clamp on the turbo side. It's a little bit easier to do that first. And then we'll put the seal on the catalytic converter. Take that. Make sure that's all the way around. There we go. And just push that onto the turbo. I'm going to start tightening this down. I don't want to tighten it down too much. Just want to get it so that the exhaust doesn't fall off. Because we have the clamp on there. And we have the seal in there. We'll tighten it down more later once everything's in place. I'm going to take this mount, line this up. If you have to adjust the converter up, you should be able to because it's still loose up top. Push that over the studs. Get some new nuts and start those. Get the nuts started over here in this bracket. Just get that bracket the way it was when it came apart. Push the converter up a little bit if you need to. And we'll tighten those down. Now snug those up. Alright, those are tight. Now if you put a piece of wood in there, you can remove that. Slide the engine back in position. Push that back. Take this bolt, line that up, get that started. And we'll tighten that down. And just make sure that's tight. That's good. The studs on ours were rotted away, so we just hammered those out. I'm just going to use bolts. Slide the new gasket over. We can get this lined up. And put the nuts on. And we'll tighten that down. Right, those are tight. If you had a bungee cord holding the exhaust up, you can remove it. Take the O2 sensor, slide that up, and get that started by hand. Just twisting the wires. Right, that's all the way down. And we'll snug it. Put the O2 sensor socket on. It's a little bit tricky to get to, but if you can get a torque wrench in there, you want to torque that to 35 foot-pounds. Now we're going to push that wire up. So it's on the other side so we can grab it from up top. Take the hangers. Get this lined up. Press that on. Get that lined up here. Put the bolts in. Tighten these down. Now we'll slide this bracket in place. Get the nuts and bolts started. Tighten these down. Now we can tighten the clamp down. That's good. And if you can get a torque wrench down there, you want to torque that to 177 inch-pounds. And reach down and grab the wire for the O2 sensor. And here's the connector. And just connect the connector. Lock that down. And you can slide it on the retainer. There we go. If there's any other retainers you need to slide the wires into, just push those back in place. There we go. Take the upstream O2 sensor, get that lined up. Start it by hand. All right, now put the socket on. The O2 sensor socket over the wire. Tighten that down. I'm going to torque that to 35 foot-pounds. All right, that's good. Take off the socket. And grab the wire. And bring it up to the connector. I'll connect the connector. Line it up. And with the push pins on the connector, slide that into the bracket. There we go. It's good. And take the hose and slide that in place. Now take this pipe and slide it down. Get this lined up here. Take this tab and the bolt, and we'll tighten those down. Snug that down. And snug that one down. And I'll tighten that worm clamp. All right, tighten that down. And I'll put this pipe on, get that lined up, lock that down. Now take this pipe. Slide that in place. Connect this pipe to that pipe. That's good. And take this screw, get that started. I'll tighten that down. I'll tighten up this worm clamp. Just snug. I'm going to tighten down this worm clamp. Just snug. That's good. Take the engine cover, line it up, and lock it down. Take the shield. Line it up. It's good. And take these bolts, get those started. And we can tighten those down. Snug, that's good. Do the same on this side. Snug that down. And put these two screws in. Hold the reservoir up. Get that lined up. Tighten those down. It's good. And take this panel, slide it in place. these clips in. I'll put the wiper arms on. Make sure they're in the same place on the windshield when you took them off. Put the nuts on. Tighten those down. Then you'll put the cap on. Do the same on the other side. Snug those down. Put the cap on. You're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.